So what was it like? Was there a big difference in terms of flying the Wessex when you went to the RAF compared to the Navy, and even, I guess, the banter there as well? How did that fare?
The banter on search and rescue is unique to search and rescue, obviously, because of the nature of it. A lot of humour might not be allowed these days, for example. You know, it's very dark humour a lot because of what we did. It didn't, when people ask me that question before, I say, well, thoroughly enjoyed it. The Navy was far better socially.
Okay.
And there was more of a community with the Royal Navy. With search and rescue, because we were much smaller, we did have a little community with the families and the rest of it, but it wasn't on the same scale. Still enjoyable and really nice, great. And of course, domestically, it was fantastic. Mm-hmm. As for flying techniques, some were slightly different. I mean, I got not into trouble, but when I did my search, when I came to the Air Force, I had to go and do a Wessex refresher at Shawbury, which was fine. There were things like the rear crew, they got them to monitor our checks in a way it was never monitored in the Navy. The pilots just got on with it.
Right.
Which I had to adjust to. Then went to Valley to do about 4 weeks of their search and rescue course. And the way that we did hovering in the Navy was a bit different from the Air Force. The Air Force said, you have to look out the front, use the horizon, and use that as your primary reference. And I thought, well, that's not very sensible, because the weather might be bad and you haven't got a horizon. I don't want to be looking at the artificial horizon. Mm. And in the Navy, we'd always just put our head out the side, because we had the big door of the Wessex. The Wessex was fantastic with the big door there. Then you just hover, you know. Yeah. You use the downwash if it was around you, or just look at the breaking water. And they tried to beat me out of it. And so I played the game whilst I was there. As soon as I got to the squadron, I went back to my old ways.
No slap on the wrist.
It was so much easier.
Yeah, absolutely. So what was it like working at Leuchars? Did you enjoy that?
Oh yeah, very, very happy 4 years there. Didn't want to leave. They were lovely guys. The engineers were fantastic. We all worked as one. There was no rank there.
Okay.
Everybody just respected experience. We used to cook for each other. Well, I was pretty awful at that, so I mainly did the washing up and stuff. But yeah, it was really nice. It was one big community. And the engineers would go above and beyond to keep the aircraft flying. And we were lucky. I mean, when you arrive, even though with my experience, I had no experience of search and rescue. So, and it was a single pilot. So I was always, in the early days, crewed up with a very experienced navigator, winchman. Which was priceless, the way to learn. I had people who'd flown Victors and Vulcans and Canberras and all sorts, and then come to Rotary as well, and they'd flown Whirlwinds and all sorts, you know, around the world. So it was a terrific place to learn. Yeah. Great bunch.
Absolutely. Yeah. So do you have any stories from your time on the Wessex in this SAR role? Because I'm sure you do.
Well, funny you should mention that. I arrived in the November. I did my acceptance training with the squadron instructor, QHI, and then I was put on shift in the December, also with an experienced crew. And Leuchars was a really busy flight. We used to get lots of rescues everywhere, you know, well into the hundreds. I think one year we busted 200 call-outs. And the flight from the 50s had been monitoring how many call-outs they had, and they were getting very, very close to 2,000. So I went on shift in the December, didn't get any call-outs. Christmas, which is usually a good time, no call-outs. For me, anyway, they were happening either side of me. January, no call-outs. February, the same. I thought, oh dear, it's never going to happen, is it? So one day I was on shift, and it was getting late in the day, and I was a bit bored, so I went into the hangar and did some of the routine checks on the second aircraft, the spare aircraft. And whilst I was there, I heard a funny noise. Well, what's that? And the shift boss was in the hangar at the same time. Humphreys said, off you go. I said, what? That's the scramble alarm, you idiot. Go and get in your aeroplane. Oh, right. And this just happened to be rescue number 2000, so no pressure.
Yep.
We went to the crew room, found out what the job was, which was a fallen climber on Ben Nevis. And at this time, we had a photographer sitting with us on shift as well, an RAF photographer. So he could capture the event, because it's a big PR thing, big propaganda. So anyway, we had a quick look, I went out, got the aircraft started, got airborne in falling light, and as we were in transit, I thought, this is going to be in the dark if we're unlucky, because we didn't have night vision goggles in those days. None of the search and rescue aircraft did. We'd had them on the Sea King 4, but we didn't have them at that time in the yellow helicopters. And it was fine, transiting through the hills. I'd seen them by day, but I'd never ever flown night rescues before, and I'd never flown a night rescue in the mountains. We weren't allowed to train in the mountains at night because it was deemed to be too dangerous.
Right, okay.
So there I was, and all these thoughts going through my mind. I had flown through mountains in the dark in the Navy days with the Sea King and the Wessex, but that was just transits, it wasn't that. And we always had NATO Ts where the guys used to stand with torches and set up a landing spot. Wasn't going to get that, of course, in the mountains. So anyway, our route took us over the Central Highlands, along Rannoch Moor, and then Rannoch Moor opens up into, or condenses down into Glen Nevis. And Glen Nevis then runs down Glen Nevis, a big right-hander, there's Fort William, in the corner, there's Ben Nevis, and then some other mountains either side. So I got there just as the light was nearly gone, thinking, right, we'll do a quick scoop and run and go. And then the mountain rescue team came up and said, the casualty's in the cloud, we're going to have to lower him, come and get, we've got some guys on the hill, want you to go and get some more, please, to bring and join us on the hill. Okay. Now, just before you got to that right angle bend, there was what we called the chicane. There were two ridges that came down like that, blocking Glen Nevis, and you had to go around like that or over the top. So when I got there, I just had enough light levels to do that, to go through. Yeah, that's fine. Went round the corner. Our landing point in Fort William was the car park, the West End car park. And the police cleared the area, made sure we could land. We landed on, and we thought the first thing we do is get rid of the photographer. Dead weight. We don't want that because there's wind, it's going to be dark, and helicopters are very, very much wind affected. I mean, if you've got a ridge and the wind's coming this way, the wind can then go straight down, and then you're using lots of extra power. And helicopters are all about a power to weight ratio. And that's always in the back of your mind. Now, normally we'd have picked up 4 or 6 mountain rescue, but with the crew, I mean, I was very, very lucky because my crew were heavily experienced. Pete Brown was an ex-fast jet navigator, and my winchman Duncan Muir had been on various aircraft types. He was well into his tours. So I was very lucky because they were helping talking me through and all the rest of it. So we landed on, kicked out the photographer, took on 2 mountain rescue and got airborne. By then it was dark. Oh, here we go. So going in the first bit of Glen Nevis, the first bit is fine because you had all the cultural lighting from Fort William and the houses and all the rest of it. Turn around the corner and it's dark, very dark. So put on my lamps. We had a landing lamp, put that on to help see roughly. I could see where the chicane was. And I found a gap to go through the chicane over the top, went through the other side in snow. Couldn't see anything. Uh-oh. Onto instruments. I don't want to do this. Yeah. And luckily we had a radar altimeter, and basically the crew said, look, just move forward a little bit, stay on the same heading because we know we're pointing straight down Glen Nevis towards Rannoch Moor. And then the crewman is then looking out the door. We had the hover lights on as well, and very, very slowly on the rad-out, so I was watching my attitude indicator, which is what we call an artificial horizon in helicopter, watching the rad-out, locked onto the instruments, just flying on instruments basically in the hover, which I'd never done before. I had no Doppler, so I was just doing it by feel more than anything else, and then just lowering the collective very, very slowly until eventually the crewman said, Duncan said, yep, there's the ground. Move right a bit, left a bit, forward, stop, right, put the wheels on.
Wow.
And landed on. So the snow shower went through, because you tend to get pulses of, it's not normally constant heavy snow, you get pulses. So we waited for that pulse to go through. I thought, God, yes. And the crew, they're putting their trust in me, and I've never done this before. So anyway, we then got airborne, and on the eastern side of Ben Nevis, you've got a double corrie, a bowl. Bowls are called corries in Scotland. So you have a ridge that comes down to what is now the ski resort, and you've got a big bowl there and then a lower one. So it's a bit tight, but got in there no problem at all. Into there, bit of wind, came round. I was able to achieve a hover just below where the casualty was and put out the 2 mountain rescue team. Out we go. And the plan was to go and pick up more members of the Loch Harbour Mountain Rescue Team. But I thought, I'm not going to go through that chicane again.
No.
I'll just one more time on the way out. So the crew agreed. Yeah. So we went down to the lower corrie,
Right. landed
on. But now, because with the flight time from Leuchars and picking up there and going in again, fuel was starting to get, well, should be all right. So landed on, it was conserving fuel rather than flying around. And I thought, it'll be 5 minutes. Duncan will be quick. He'll get a scoop and run on him. They'll bring him down to the snow line and we can go. But 5 minutes went, and 10 minutes went. And I was watching the fuel gauges going, I've got to do something about this. So back to old Navy tricks again. And basically, I pulled the speed select levers. These were what we told the computers what we wanted to do. So we put them in a flight mode when we wanted to fly. And also you had idling and then in the in-between. So I pulled the levers back and decayed the rotor. Normally the rotor goes around about 230, 233 in a Wessex. And I pulled it back to about 190 until the thing was starting to wobble a bit.
Right.
Not stable, so I left it there, which did save us quite a bit of fuel. In the Wessex we had a gauge which we didn't have in the Sea King, which was a fuel flow gauge. And it told you exactly the fuel flow into both engines.
Oh, wow, okay.
And so my navigator, Pete Brown, could actually tell me how much we're saving and how much extra time it's going to give us.
Yeah.
Very handy guy to have aboard.
Absolutely.
And that kit, you didn't have that in the Sea King, but then we had more fuel. So anyway, eventually the casualty was ready, and using the lights, and the MRT were there, also with their lights, I was able to go up. We winched Duncan aboard with the stretcher, and then we flew out. And then because we were going the other way, there was still some cultural lighting bouncing off the top end of the turn in Glen Nevis. So I managed to see the chicane, go through it, turn round, went and landed on at Fort William. And then that was when all the photographers were there, not just ours. And they were doing these flashes right into my eye. And I said, well, I'm not staying here, I will be moving on. So anyway, that happened. And as usually happened with search and rescue, the winchman, who was always trained to a high medical standard, went with the casualty to hospital for the handover, which was only a short drive away from where we landed. So meanwhile, Pete and I got airborne and we flew across to Corpac, just across the water. It was a paper mill, and a lot of the guys from the mountain rescue team worked there. And we had a fuel dump there. So around Scotland there were various fuel barrels in secure containers, and we could just land on and refuel, which made it life easier. And then we decided we're staying the night. We're not going to try flying back after all that. So we shut down the aircraft and we went down Fort William and had a lovely night in the Grand Hotel with a few beers. we told the rescue coordination, that's it, we're off state, we're wrecked.
What an amazing
So that was that one. Do you want to hear a couple more?
Go for it, yeah.
Not long after that, next month in fact, I was still a D category pilot, which is the probationary, if you like, which on most aircraft means you're always a co-pilot. On the Wessex was single pilot, so I was single pilot. A trawler that had gone aground off Montrose, and they were really concerned it was going to break up and the guys on board were going to drown. The weather wasn't good, quite a low cloud base. And I was on with a relatively inexperienced navigator, but a very, very experienced winchman. And they said, let's go. Okay, let's go. So basically got airborne, followed the coast up to Montrose from Leuchars, staying low level under the clouds for about 400 or 500 feet the whole way, past the cliffs at Arbroath, then up to Montrose. Saw the boat was there, it was stuck on this sandbank, there was like a storm blowing and the boat was rocking like anything. And there was, genuine concern that the breaches buoy the Coast Guard had in those days couldn't do it for some reason. It wasn't long enough for their line or whatever. So the crew decided we were going to winch. Now, when you're winching over the sea with a helicopter, you use the downwash or you use the breaking water, the white horses, to give you your references. With the surf line we were in, a very long surf line, it's moving all over the place.
Right.
So you have moving references.
Yeah.
And in that weather, I couldn't have anything to look at for a horizon or anything. So it was real seat of the pants stuff again. So we did the standard thing of dropping a high line. We drop a rope, first of all, down to a boat. And the rope is then connected to the winch. So when the winch comes out, they can then haul the hook to the boat and reduce the risk of any snagging.
Right.
That was done. So the winchman went down, and just as we had a slow speed winch on the Wessex. It was 1 speed, whereas the Sea King has a high speed winch and a variable speed one. The Wessex was in or out, end of story. And the first time we tried to get him in, the poor winchman got bashed up against the side of the trawler. Came out again, he gave the thumbs up, we went for another go, got him on. Trying to hold out a hover was a nightmare because of the lack of references, but we did it. And then he came aboard with the casualties and we dropped them ashore. Flew back, another in the dark. It was interesting. I mean, I'd winched off boats a lot in the past, of course, never quite like that before. And then I then phoned the duty authoriser, who I was supposed to before I got airborne.
Okay, right.
Because then he would decide whether or not I should have had another pilot with me. And of course, in the heat of the moment, and just went.
Yeah.
And he said, "My dear boy, if you'd phoned me, I would have said, cut along, go and do it, just be careful." He was great, an ex-navigator from Canberra's.
Nice.
So yeah, that was done, and that hit all the press and all the rest of it.
How did you feel like when it hit the press? And did you enjoy that, like, or was it?
No, I mean, when I came back from Rescue 2000, we landed on feeling grubby and not the best sleep and all the rest of it. We came in straight into a press conference because it was Rescue 2000, and didn't want to be there. So I wasn't very talkative. Didn't like that. But over the years, got used to the press because it became standard. Because, I mean, the group captain at Leuchars, when they were talking about shutting the flight down, said, "No way can you shut it down," because it's the helicopters that buy off the low flying complaints from the noisy jets. So it was great for that, and everybody loved a yellow helicopter. So that was that one. And the other one that really sticks in my mind was a navigator ejected from a Phantom. A funny old thing, this was at night again. It's funny how all my most memorable ones are at night. So again, in the crew room, it was getting dark, and we heard a mayday over, because we monitored radios there. We heard a mayday from a Phantom that they're ejecting, and this was, I don't know, about 50, 70 miles out or so from Leuchars. So here we go. So we got ready, and then we got told to go, and of course it went from day into night as we were airborne. And this was when they were talking about shutting Leuchars, because they said the Wessex didn't have a night capability. The Sea King was much better, which is true. But if the conditions were good, we were just as good if it was within our range. So anyway, flew out. It was dark. In the Wessex, the navigator would sit left-hand seat until we approached a rescue, and they would then go down to the back to become the winch operator. And it was an upstairs downstairs. I mean, the Navy loved it because you had an upstairs and a downstairs for the officers up front and the chaps down below. But so anyway, so the navigator, as we approached on scene, he flipped his seat up and went down and stood on the steps so he could watch the instruments and he could advise me of speed, height. We had a radalt, but no radalt hold. And we used to hover at 30 feet over the sea in the Wessex. So he monitored me into the hover, had all the lights on, because we could see the navigator with his light on. He had the emergency beacon going and the lights. We found them straight away. Lined up into the wind, let down to 30 feet. The navigator, when I was happily settled, I could see him right in front of me, went down the back then to operate the winch. I then hover taxied forward on the navigator's instructions. We got into the hover, winchman went down, did his stuff, brought the navigator up. And then we flew off to take him to hospital. And one of the things the navigator said when he first came in was, "You can't do that. You're a Wessex." I said, "Well, there we go." I mean, it was a very sad thing because sadly the pilot didn't get out. But and naturally, the navigator was absolutely cut up about it all. You know, a horrible thing to have to go through. So the winchman got him on the Entonox, even though he didn't need Entonox, which is laughing gas.
Oh, right, okay.
And by the time we were landing at Nine Wells Hospital in Dundee, the navigator was back to the standard fast jet versus helicopter banter. So, it worked. And the amazing coincidence was that my parents, living down in Essex, knew his parents.
Oh, no way.
They lived in the same town virtually.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So that was another bit for the local paper, not just the one up north.
You're always in the paper, aren't you?
Yeah, so night rescues in the Wessex. When people ask me how would I describe the three aircraft, Bulldog, Wessex and Sea King, I'd equate it to cars.
Okay.
The Bulldog was like an MGB, MX-5, fun sports car, but you couldn't really do much with it. The Wessex was like the old Land Rover Defender.
Ah.
Very forgiving, very old, but reliable as anything, man can get you out of a scrape. The Sea King is more like my current car, a Subaru Outback. Lots of power compared with the Wessex, very, very comfortable, lots of gadgets, but not as much fun to fly in terms of handling, but fun from what it could do.
Yeah, absolutely. But then obviously you went on to the Sea King 3, I think it was.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
SAR role. Did you choose that, or was it inevitable you were going to go there?
I chose it. I mean, the RAF, certainly when I was there, was very, very good in that when you were getting close to they were thinking about your next job, you could haggle to a certain extent. And that was good. And I said, well, look, I'd like to go down to Bulmer and fly the Sea Kings down there. And luckily it happened. So I went back down to Culdrose again, where after the Wessex I did my Sea King conversion down at Culdrose with the Navy. And then with the Air Force I was back again, but now wearing the different colour uniform.
Yeah.
And did my Sea King conversion. It was really funny going into a bar on the Friday then after work. And there were lots of guys going, I know you. Because I was now in the faded blue rather than the proper blue.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was good. And the course was good, yeah. I had to unlearn some bad habits from the Wessex to fly the Sea King the proper way. But yeah, and then I ended up at Bulmer.
Yeah, yeah. So what was it like when you got there? Did it feel like, as good as Leuchars, for instance, or was it a completely different environment?
It was different, whereas at Leuchars the ground crew and the air crew we mixed together a lot more, and we cooked for each other. At Bulmer, because it was so much bigger, I guess, more air crew and more ground crew, we did our own thing for meals, so we didn't have that contact. But we were, still on first name terms with each other, and total respect for what the engineers did for us and vice versa. They would work all hours to keep us going. The atmosphere in the crew room was exactly the same, although now we had an extra pilot, which was a really good system because you could then learn your trade as a co-pilot if you'd come straight out of training, or somebody like me is just learn what your skills you already had and just transfer them. My first proper rescue, well, one of my early rescues at Leuchars was funny, that's Bulmer, sadly, was Montrose again. I'd been a captain and I was on a captain shift, and we had the checkers in. It's our version of Ofsted, if you like.
Oh, right.
Where they would come on a regular basis and they'd go through all our paperwork and they'd fly with each member of the crew. And they'd arrived. And I was on a captain shift, well, okay, fair enough. And the scramble bell went, so I had the checking pilot behind me, standing behind me, and went up to Montrose because a pilot cutter, same as the one out there, had, in Montrose, it was a very strong southerly wind, and they've got a big bit of land that comes out from the harbour, so it was quite sheltered there, and they had to go out to bring a boat into Montrose. They went out, and as they got round the corner, they went, uh-oh, and there's a really heavy swell, really heavy, and they didn't want to turn the boat in case it got capsized. So they were sitting there, thought, well, we'll sit this out, just keep the engine going. But as the time progressed, the engine was working really, really hard, it was overheating, they were concerned it was going to fail, and if it did that, the boat would turn across the waves and then go over. So we got scrambled and went up there because we were quicker to get there than Lossiemouth with a strong southerly wind. So we arrived on scene. The weather was not a problem, just windy. Lined up, and then, yeah, did the standard, put the high line down. The boat was moving around a lot. Now in the Wessex, because the winch was right by my ear, I could look out the big door and see what was going on. Sea King, you can't do that. So for anybody who's old enough and can remember the golden shot, manoeuvring a Sea King, you're too young for that, was just like the golden shot. We used to have Bernie the Bolt, who had this crossbow, and somebody on the phone would say left a bit, right a bit, up a bit, down a bit, fire. So it was like that, except we didn't do fire, we did winch. So anyway, so Rick Maving was the winch operator, again, very experienced. And the boat was moving quite badly, particularly pitching. But we decided to go for it. Chris Wood, another very experienced winchman, and put the high line down, put the winch down with the winchman. He got on, no problem at all. He unclipped. As he was unclipped, the boat moved exactly the wrong way. And it had two aerials on the little mast they had like that. And the winch cable went in between the two. And it got stuck. Now in those days, we didn't have the emergency electrical hoist, which was a retrofit whilst we were flying. So we had to get that cable free. So Rick was talking me around a barn dance, around the boat,
Right.
as we were trying to get it off.
Yeah.
It wasn't coming. It was not going to come. And Chris decided that he'd rather risk going up the mast than taking his time in the sea. So he actually shinned up the mast somehow, and with the boat doing this, remember?
Yeah.
And then he freed it, got it clear, and then the rest of it went as clockwork.
Right.
And yeah, we got the guys off the boat and safely ashore, and then back to base. And luckily, that was my check ride complete, nothing academic. And even though it went slightly wrong, it was all an operational hazard. Yeah, so that was a very memorable early rescue from Bulmer.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like, how many, was there an average crew, say? Was it always a standard, 2 and then 2 in the back or something, or would it differ on each mission?
No, we always had 2 pilots up front in the SAR Sea King, and then a radar operator, who then doubled up as the winch operator when on scene, and then the winchman who obviously did the business end, going down to the casualties. That was always the same. We never changed from that. It was only as if we had training officers or checkers on board that we had an extra air crew member. And we didn't have constituted crews in SAR, Wessex or Sea King. And I was always impressed by the training system. It was so standardized that we would regularly go and do a stand-in shift at another flight to help them when they were short of people. And you'd go there, you'd never met them before, and yet, poof, there you were, working as a crew straight away. Nothing different.
Yeah.
It was really, really good. Everybody had their little ideas and all the rest of it. When it came to standard operating procedure, it was great. I mean, we used to meet other pilots and we used to do our annual simulator rides. And we used to staff the Falklands. We had 2 Sea King 3s down in the Falklands. And that was for search and rescue and to help out with the tasking. And again, you'd be there with people you'd never met in your life. And in those days, we were all Sea King Mark 3s.
Yes.
Before the 3A came in. So it was just a click. We're all just working together. And we'd be down there for 4 to 6 weeks, and yeah, it was great.
So was there an average day as a SAR pilot at Bulmer?
Okay, well what happened was we were there on 15 minutes notice by day to get airborne, maximum 15 minutes, unless there was a good reason otherwise. At night time, because there'd be more flight planning, the Wessex it was an hour. For the Sea King, because we had 2 pilots, it was 45 minutes. So we were allowed to sleep, so we had bedrooms, we'd get our heads down, but if the phone call came in middle of the night, you had to be airborne within 45 minutes. Usually be airborne quicker than that. The second's aircraft was held on standby by day with the off-going crew. Used to work a 24-hour shift, so we normally shift change around about 9, half 9. And then the off-going crew would then go on to second standby, which was on an hour's standby from the end of a pager, in the days before mobiles on a pager. But often the second aircraft, of course, would be on maintenance or waiting for spares or whatever. So I'd say about half the time the second standby was available.
Right.
Yeah, and that was basically our day. We would come in, and then once we'd taken the first standby, we would then chat as a crew to then decide what should we do today. Sometimes you had tasks in, but usually you had a clear day. So in the Wessex we had 3 hours of training available. The Sea King was 4 hours, and we would then talk amongst ourselves. We had targets to hit each month. We had to do so much time practicing hovering over the sea, so much time practicing winching out of the sea. We had to have so much time cliffs, so much time this, that, general handling, instrument flying, particularly the Sea King, shooting, instrument landing approaches into Newcastle to keep that skill going. And we would decide between a crew what we all needed and what we wanted to do.
Okay.
But we try to mix it up with a bit of fun as well.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the standard things for all coastal yellow helicopters was that we'd go out somewhere, and as we came back to the base, we'd always do a beach bumble, waving at the taxpayers as we went by.
I bet they loved that.
Oh yeah, and the guys would sit in the crew door open, legs dangling over the side, waving.
And you could do that? You were allowed to do that?
Oh yeah, that was all good. That was great
brilliant.
PR, and we had a transit anyway.
Yeah.
So that was good. Yeah, we used to do a lot of fun things.
Yeah, absolutely. Just on a side note here, I remember my school in Durham. We had a Sea King land, and I was absolutely fascinated with it on our football field. And I was like, "Can they actually do that?" And I was like, "Yeah, you can do it."
Yeah, we could. That was the joy of a helicopter. When the weather gets bad, you landed on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or one of the other things we used to do, which was allowed, which I'm sure wouldn't be now, was particularly at weekends when generally the RAF wasn't flying, and we were paid basically for military rescue. It was funded by the MOD just for military rescue. We did the civilian side as an add-on, if you like, but that was our main bread and butter. So at a weekend, if the weather was nice, where should we go today? Let's go and do a training trip over in the lakes or over at Ben Nevis or whatever. And we were allowed with the Rescue Coordination Centre, providing we always had contact with them to land on. So from Leuchars, a standard one, was to go to Glencoe, where we did a lot of rescues in Glencoe, and we'd land on at the King's House, which is the inn, the pub just on the Rannoch Moor end of it. Yeah. We'd land on there, go in, and the publican loved that because the big yellow advertising board there used to bring customers in, and often we'd get a free lunch there whilst we were there. And we did the same thing. I mean, in fact, one year with the Sea King, I was on Christmas Day. Okay. And one of our other little tasks we used to do was to take Santa flying round about Christmas Day to help him with his work.
Of course.
And he used to sit in the door and wave at people as well as we went along. So on Christmas Day, I'd organise, because there was no planned military flying whatsoever, it was only us on, and the weather was okay, not likely to be needed for sea rescue. I said, can we go down to the line in at Blakey Ridge on top of North York Moors and deliver Santa there? They said, yeah, fine, as long as you're on the phone there. Yeah, it's no problem, they've got a phone line there. So our winchman, who was a good build, was in the red suit, and we went down there, and as we arrived by the pub, because it was all set up in advance, we did a couple of orbits with Santa flying. We then landed on, Santa went out, and then handed out all these selection boxes that the publican had handed to us when we landed to give to the kids who were having their lunches, their Christmas lunch. And when he'd done that, the winchman went and got changed in the helicopter. Subsequently, we got out to then go and have our own free Sunday lunch, Christmas lunch, as part of the deal of coming down. And whilst we were going in, a kid came out to the winchman and said, Mister, where's Santa gone? And the kid, and the winchman, doing typical air crew banter, said, oh, I'm really sorry. You saw the pilot when they turned the aircraft at the side. He fell out. And the kid went, wah, and went running into the pub. So, Santa's dead. And the winchman, who was the nicest guy in the world, he was big cuddly Phil, he was lovely. He rushed back into the helicopter, got the red suit back on, and came back in so all the kids could see him again.
That's me. Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
That was a very memorable day because most of the northeast was in fog, low cloud fog, but the top of the North York Moors was totally clear. Yeah. And we flew down above, there's the pub, land on. Yeah. And we held standby from there for a couple of hours.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was really, really nice.
That's brilliant.
And that was the big thing about the Sea King. It had a radar, it had a flight control system. We could fly in horrible weather over the sea. Absolutely.
We're going to wrap up this now, but can you maybe share like a couple of stories from the Sea King in the SAR role?
Talked about Montrose. Not long after starting, I was still co-pilot status, and it was a night job. Funny, a night job again. And it was...
You're always buggered, aren't you?
It was this time, it was flooding in the Perthshire area. There'd been really bad flooding. The River Tay had burst its banks, and people were marooned on the top of houses and stuff. And so we went up, and at night, we were winching people off their roofs and taking them to dry land. So that was very memorable. Another one which was, everybody knows we do mountain rescues, and yeah, they're very important. They can be quite thrilling at times for all of us. But we also did some other odds and ends, and a standard one at the time was Holy Island, Lindisfarne, off the Northumberland coast. So when the tide comes in, the causeway's covered. At each end of the causeway, there are big signs saying, it's got the tide tables, saying when's safe to travel. Now what happens there, it's very, very flat, sort of mud flats between the mainland and the island. And there's a little stream that runs through. And when the tide's out, easy. So people obviously ignore the tide tables.
Yeah.
But what happens is the tide's coming in, that stream fills up. And then very, very quickly, it comes over the top and goes,
Right.
covers it. And so one of our bimbles on the way back, we always used to go via the refuge hut.
Right.
If we had been up north, because there's a little raised bridge, and off it there's a cabin on legs, where if people have to abandon their cars on that bridge bit, they can then walk up into the hut, and then there's a phone there for the Coast Guard. As a general rule, the Coast Guard, as a punishment, would make people wait it out until the tide goes out.
Right.
Then the local Coast Guard mobile would come and get them. But if anybody had a medical condition, if there were children or anything like that, they would ask us to go and get them. If we were nearby or if we weren't available, then the lifeboat, the inshore rescue boat would come up from sea houses. A couple of times, we did this quite a few times, but coming back on one of them, we flew past just from what we've been doing up in the Forth or whatever, and there were these 3 or 4 brand new BMWs parked on the bridge. And in the hut and then spilling out onto the steps were these people in very fine suits and frocks and stuff. So we flew past, we asked Tynemouth, as they were Coast Guards, do you want us to pick them up? And they said, describe the situation. We've got these three brand new BMWs, parked one behind each other. They're all in posh clothes and all the rest of it, and they're waving at us. As the Coast Guard, do they look in any distress? No, apart from their cars being flooded. And they said, which case, make them wait. I think for some reason the Coast Guards had something against BMWs and BMW owners. I can't understand that. And another one, which could have got me into trouble, we actually were tasked from the standing start to a car that had been washed off. They hadn't got as far as the bridge, and it was this little Polo or something, Volkswagen, but they got swept off by the tide, and a couple were sitting on the roof. So go and get them, please. So we went and got there, and the winchman went down, and the first thing he brought up was a cat. They had their cat with them for some reason on holiday. And then the winchman went down and brought up the man and the woman as well and reunited them with the cat. We weren't allowed to use humour. Every time we did a rescue, we had to write a report, a signal format, as they call it, which went around all the other bases and other people who were interested in what we did as rescues. We couldn't use humour. I wrote it absolutely verbatim as it happened. And I said that we went to Lindisfarne, rescued the people. It was 2 elderly women, an elderly man, an elderly woman, and the winchman had to do a physical grip on Mrs. Tidy's pussy.
That's the truth.
It was the exact truth. He did that because there's no harness you can put a cat in, so he physically had to grab it and pull it up.
That's brilliant. But,
So we used to do all sorts of odds and ends. We used to do quite a bit at Holy Island, particularly in the dark and bad weather, because when the tide was in, we used to have an SOP, a standard operating procedure with the local emergency services, where we would go there, deliver fire crew, for example, to the little fire station there, because they didn't have any retained firemen on site, and lifting off heart attack victims, stuff like that. That was quite a standard one. Down in the Falklands, we used to take turns to go down. We used to had 2 crews, 2 aircraft down there, and our primary role was search and rescue. Often it was picking up a soldier who'd injured themselves out and about on the island somewhere. But also we used to go out and help pick people up off trawlers and stuff of any nationality that were there. I did one that was about 170 miles out to the north of the islands, did that one. And that was quite funny because the owner, the manager of that shipping company, came in effusively, really grateful and all the rest of it. And he presented us with a couple of slabs of beer to say thank you, which is fantastic.
Brilliant.
Opened it up, took a swig, off shift I was, and looked at the date, and it'd gone out of date like 6 months before, and that was just awful. That didn't stop our rear crew or the engineers from drinking it.
No, they didn't.
But the longest one I did was out towards South Georgia. That was a long way, and I couldn't do it on one tank of gas. So what happened there, we actually positioned a Royal Fleet auxiliary that wasn't too far away to actually be where I wanted it to land on and use as a filling station. So we got airborne. There was 4 of us on board plus a doctor, because this guy had been mangled by a winch, it seems. And it was a bit more than the winchman wanted to do on his own, looking after the casualty. So we flew out, and on the way, there'd been a big breakage of one of the Antarctic ice shelves. And we had this amazing flight with these icebergs going around. And just where we happened to be refueling was in the middle of the iceberg field.
Oh.
So the Royal Fleet Auxiliary landed on the back of it, no problem at all, getting the fuel. But he had to keep zigzagging, he didn't want to do a Titanic. He was avoiding the icebergs. And then we got to the casualty. The boat was moving around quite a bit. We got him on board, flew him back, and what the RAF did then, which was brilliant, the VC-10s that were down there at the time to refuel the fast jets, they would then fly the casualty off to the mainland, normally Montevideo, to either be treated there or to be taken back to UK. And that was really, I think, the most memorable one in terms of the flight. It was a very long flight, needed the refuel, and the icebergs were a memory forever.
So how many hours did you get on the Sea King and the SAR?
Well, I reckon overall I got about 6,500 hours total flying time, of which I reckon about 4.5 were on the Sea King.
Wow.
Mostly as captain.
Wow, that's impressive. Pretty good.
A lot of time being shaken around.
I can imagine. But yeah, we got a couple of questions, a few from viewers, and then a couple of personal ones to wrap up, if you're happy with that.
Yeah.
One. Did the cables ever snap while winching?
No, it never snapped. Very strong. What used to happen though is the winch, as it came up, if you've got a hose pipe and you do that, then the hose pipe will come in whatever order it wants. It will go over other bits and it will jam a bit. Same problem with the winch. So we had a layering system. So it would layer it. So as it came up, there was a little motor that moved forward and back on the drum, making sure it was layered without any snagging. If that failed, and we would get what we call a bird's nest. Did that. And yes, that did happen a couple of times. And you think of plan B, whatever that was. Eventually we got a thing called the emergency electrical hoist, which came in a little suitcase, and we used to carry it on board all the time, and we used to train with it. It never happened to me, but the guys did, on occasion, have to put it on like a big carabiner onto a strong point outside the cabin door, and then use this electrical hoist, but it had a much shorter cable on it, obviously.
Yeah, brilliant. Would you ever change anything about your flying and military career?
There's always odds and ends we would always change in life, aren't there? Wish I hadn't done this, wish I hadn't done that. But overall, no. The way I was very, very lucky. I flew with wonderful people. I was very lucky to go to search and rescue when I did, because there wasn't as much regulation as you normally get. I mean, for us, when we were training, we had rules and regulations. When we were on a scramble, the rule was don't break it or any of the crew, basically, and we could do whatever we wanted to get the work done. And we flew in conditions which civilian pilots just weren't allowed to. And it was great, and we worked as a crew, as a team. Everybody had a veto, and that worked really, really well.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you ever feel unsafe in bad conditions while conducting a rescue mission?
Yes. But again, it's using the experience of the crew you're with to overcome that. I think one of the most interesting ones I had, where I thought, am I in danger? Another of our standard trips in the Sea King was to do medivacs. So we would go to a hospital, pick up a sick person and transfer them to a hospital, another one. And a standard one was to go from the Freeman in Newcastle with a sick baby, with an underdeveloped lung, and we would then fly them down to Leicester or Birmingham. So on one dirty night, I picked up the baby and the medical team, because there was loads of room in the Sea King for that. And we went up, and we flew down in cloud the whole way down to Birmingham. At Birmingham, I needed a full instrument landing as if I was a jet airliner. And so I set up on approach. I was coming down at best speed that a Sea King could do, which wasn't a lot. And the air trafficker said, Rescue 131, can you increase your speed? I said, no, I'm at maximum possible now. I said, we've got Concorde behind you.
What? Really?
So I can't go faster than Concorde. Sorry, you'll have to go around and have another go. So yeah, we did that. We got a good cloud break, and then basically just very carefully got to the Birmingham Children's Hospital to deliver the casualty.
Oh, wow.
And as for unsafe, there was one other. I went to a landing site, a hospital landing site, in a certain city, I won't say where it was, which was renowned for the locals. And we landed on, and whilst we were waiting for the casualty to be brought to us, some youngsters came across and started asking questions about the helicopter, in particular, have you got any drugs on board?
As you do.
Which we do. And I was with an old and bold pilot who was shooing them away and all the rest of it. And eventually, thank goodness, the police arrived and took control of the landing site. Then we got the casualty, went away, and we got back to base. We noticed that the dust caps were missing off our wheels.
No way.
Yeah, so the wheels were there, luckily. You know, they hadn't been taken, but the dust caps were taken off the inflation tubes.
Wow, that's
so
incredible.
Felt not unsafe, but a little uneasy at that landing site.
I can
And after that, we said, we will never land on again unless the police have secured it already.
That's mad. But yeah, favourite aircraft you've flown?
All of them.
Right.
It really, as I said before, the Bulldog was your MX-5, your MGB, your Wessex was your really forgiving Land Rover Defender, and your Sea King was, you know, like a Subaru Outback, you know, or your BMW or whatever.
Yeah.
It's got all the gadgets, but not quite as much fun to drive as a Defender.
Yeah, I can imagine. One you would like to fly either past or present?
I'd always toyed with the idea of trying to find another Bulldog and have a flight.
Right.
Because they were just simple, fun. The aerobatics you could do in it were really good. But nah, I'm too old.
But is there, last question here, is there any chance of a book coming up or anything like that? Have you ever thought about that?
I have written some accounts, but that's staying family only.
Right.
Perhaps when I'm no longer here, the family might decide to let them out.
Right, I got you. But yeah, Paul, thank you very much for coming on the show.